The Vrendari ambassador's footsteps echoed through the United Nations chamber, each click of his chidness feet against marble, marking another moment of expected human panic that failed to materialize. His species' battle computers had predicted an 89.3% chance of chaos following their ultimatum. Instead, the human delegates continued their preparations with unsettling precision. "You have 72 hours to surrender your world," he repeated, mandibles clicking in frustration. "The Vrendari Empire has conquered 37 civilizations. Your primitive defenses cannot hope to." "Ambassador Cathal," interrupted the Chinese representative, her voice carrying the same tone one might use to correct a child's mathematics, "we understand you believe your empire's methods of conquest to be efficient. However, we should inform you that your announcement has proceeded exactly as outlined in the hyperspace contact scenario Delta 7, which Earth's nations drafted 43 years ago." Cathal's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of confusion that the human cultural attaches noted and transmitted worldwide. The humans had been studying his species' body language from the moment first contact occurred, cataloging every twitch and gesture with methodical thoroughness. "You anticipated our exact demands." His translator struggled to convey his disbelief. "Ambassador," the American representative smiled, sliding a data chip across the polished table, "we've anticipated everything." In orbit, Vrendari sensors detected no military buildup, no mass panic in the streets below. Their behavior prediction algorithms crashed attempting to explain why humans were calmly going about their daily routines despite the threat of imminent annihilation. Thal's hands trembled as he inserted the chip into his neural reader. The first line of data streamed directly into his consciousness. "We've been expecting you for centuries." What followed was a detailed analysis of Vrendari military doctrine, psychological weaknesses, and cultural pressure points, all compiled decades before their species had even encountered humanity. Deep beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the exchange through quantum-encrypted feeds. At precisely the calculated moment of maximum psychological impact, she initiated Protocol Omega. Across Earth, thousands of sealed chambers simultaneously activated their power signatures for the first time in half a century. The Vrendari ambassador's scans detected the energy spikes but couldn't decode their purpose. His final report to the Imperial fleet contained a warning that his species' military strategists dismissed as paranoid. "They're not preparing for war. They'd been ready for war since before we found them." In the UN chamber's antechamber, the Russian delegate made a single call. "The pieces are in position. They've taken the bait. Commence Operation Retrospect." Across Earth, humanity's real preparations began. The Vrendari had demanded conflict, but they were about to learn that humans had turned warfare into an art form long before they reached the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen's footsteps echoed through Facility Omega as she descended to the quantum computing core. The air grew colder with each sublevel, the temperature necessary to maintain the most sophisticated artificial intelligence humanity had ever created. Behind her, a team of international military observers followed in reverent silence. "Welcome to Project Cassandra," she announced, her voice carrying across the cathedral-like chamber. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing real-time analysis of the approaching Vrendari fleet. While they spent centuries perfecting faster-than-light travel, we devoted our time to understanding the one thing they never mastered: warfare in all its forms. The central AI core pulsed with a soft blue light, its quantum processors processing centuries of human conflict. Every war, every battle, every guerrilla campaign, and every revolution had been fed into its neural networks. But more importantly, it contained something the Vrendari could never comprehend: the complete psychological and sociological analysis of how warfare shaped human civilization. Their first tactical error, Chen explained, gesturing to a holographic display of Vrendari fleet movements, was assuming that their technological superiority guaranteed victory. Their second error was believing that our relative peace in recent decades indicated weakness. The observers watched as Cassandra displayed its predictions for the upcoming conflict. The AI had been running simulations since first contact, its models incorporating everything from ancient Chinese military treatises to modern hybrid warfare doctrine. They're following exactly the pattern we predicted, a British general observed, watching the Vrendari fleet's approach vectors. But how could we have known their tactics decades ago? Chen smiled, bringing up another display. Because warfare follows universal patterns. The Vrendari are sophisticated, but they're predictable. They fight like an empire that's never faced true existential threat. Their doctrine is built on overwhelming force and technological superiority. But they've never encountered a species that turned warfare itself into a science. In lunar orbit, automated systems that had laid dormant for 30 years began their activation sequences. What the Vrendari sensors identified as abandoned mining operations were actually weapon platforms, disguised using technology reverse engineered from studying their own stealth systems before they'd even arrived. Humanity's greatest strength, Chen continued, isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our experience with conflict in all its forms. Every human child playing strategy games, every business negotiation, every political campaign. It's all warfare in miniature. We've turned it into an art form. The facility's screens lit up with new data as Cassandra detected changes in Vrendari communication patterns. The AI's prediction algorithms went to work immediately, decoding not just their tactical plans, but the psychological state of their command structure. They're preparing for their first assault, Chen announced, watching the patterns emerge. They'll target our lunar installations, believing them to be our primary defense network. She paused, allowing herself a small smile. They don't realize those installations are exactly where we want them to attack. A junior analyst raised his hand. Dr. Chen, the Vrendari intercepted transmissions suggesting our lunar bases are vital military assets. Shouldn't we be concerned? Those transmissions, Shen replied, were crafted by Cassandra 3 weeks ago, specifically to encourage this exact attack pattern. The Vrendari pride themselves on their intelligence gathering. They never considered that we might be feeding them exactly what we want them to see. Deep within the lunar regolith, automated systems continued their quiet activation. What appeared to be simple mining equipment reconfigured itself into defensive positions. Maintenance drones, designed to appear primitive to Vrendari scans, contained weapon systems specifically engineered to exploit weaknesses in their shield technology. Observe, Chen commanded, bringing up a new holographic display. In 37 conquered systems, the Vrendari have never deviated from their standard invasion protocol. First, they neutralize orbital defenses. Then, they establish space superiority. Finally, they launch ground invasions with overwhelming force. She gestured to a series of blinking points across the lunar surface. We've spent decades preparing for each phase. The facility's lights dimmed momentarily as Cassandra directed more power to its prediction matrices. On the main screen, a countdown appeared. Estimated time until the Vrendari launched their first assault. They believe they're about to execute a perfect decapitation strike, Chen said, watching the numbers tick down. Instead, they're about to learn why humanity's fractured history of constant warfare wasn't a weakness. It was preparation for this exact moment. An alarm chimed softly. Cassandra had detected the first wave of Vrendari ships moving into attack position. Send the signal, Chen ordered. Across the lunar surface, false transmissions ceased. Mining equipment fell silent. The trap was set. In the observation room, the assembled military leaders watched as humanity's decades-long deception entered its final phase. They had prepared for this moment since before the Vrendari had even discovered Earth's existence. Now they would show them why challenging humanity to conflict had been their greatest mistake. The countdown reached 0. Above them, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting for humanity to demonstrate exactly what they had learned from millennia of warfare. The art of preparation was complete. The real demonstration was about to begin. Grand Marshal Kex watched in mounting horror as his first wave of elite ships encountered what could only be described as organized chaos. His neural interfaces streamed constant updates of tactical impossibilities. Mining equipment performing military-grade evasive maneuvers, maintenance drones implementing advanced warfare protocols, and civilian infrastructure transforming into defensive networks with impossible precision. Impossible. He chittered, mandibles clicking rapidly as another squadron of his finest ships fell victim to what appeared to be repurposed mining lasers. These are mere industrial tools. His tactical officer, young Bloodkoves, brought up a three-dimensional display of the lunar battlefield. "Marshal, we're detecting something unusual about their mining tunnels. The patterns, they're not random. They're..." An explosion rocked their command ship as a network of supposedly abandoned mining shafts activated simultaneously, releasing clouds of metallic dust that their sensors had dismissed as industrial waste. The dust, now revealed to be billions of microscopic drones, began systematically attacking their ship's sensor arrays. "They'd weaponized their garbage," Kivas whispered in disbelief. In one of the lunar craters, a group of what their intelligence had identified as simple maintenance workers demonstrated combat maneuvers that rivaled the Empire's best zero-gravity specialists. Their primitive excavation suits proved to be highly sophisticated combat armor, designed to appear harmless until the moment of engagement. "Marshal," his communications officer interrupted, "we're intercepting their transmissions." But the officer's carapace paled. "They're using children's game codes to relay tactical information. Our cryptography systems can't break them because they're not military ciphers. They're based on something called Pokemon trading cards and Minecraft crafting recipes." Kex's secondary hearts nearly stopped as he watched a squadron of his capital ships fall into perfect formation above a lunar mare, exactly where the humans wanted them. The mare's surface suddenly rippled, revealing a massive electromagnetic pulse generator disguised as a mineral processing facility. Before his ships could react, their systems were temporarily paralyzed. "How long?" he demanded. "How long have they been preparing these defenses?" His tactical officer brought up historical data. "Marshal, according to our records, these lunar installations were constructed over 50 Earth years ago, officially for resource extraction. But the energy signatures, they match perfectly with military-grade weapon systems. They built their defenses in plain sight, disguising them as civilian infrastructure. On their screens, human workers in what appeared to be simple pressure suits demonstrated combat techniques that seemed to defy physics. They used the lunar gravity to their advantage, turning every piece of mining equipment into a weapon, every maintenance tunnel into a trap. Their entire lunar operation, Kivas realized, it was never about mining. Everything, every tunnel, every piece of equipment, every routine maintenance schedule, it was all designed for this moment. A new alert blared through the command center. Their rear guard had encountered something even more bewildering. Civilian satellites repurposed into military platforms with a single software update. Communication satellites became jamming arrays. Weather monitoring stations transformed into targeting systems. "Marshal," his engineering chief reported, "we've analyzed their weapon systems. They're elegant in their simplicity. They've taken basic industrial tools and modified them slightly, just enough to exploit weaknesses in our defenses that we didn't even know existed. It's as if they've spent decades studying our technological vulnerabilities." Kex watched as another wave of his ships fell into yet another carefully prepared trap. This time, a field of supposedly inert space debris suddenly activated, revealing itself to be a network of autonomous defense platforms. His mighty armada was being systematically dismantled by equipment that any civilized species would have dismissed as primitive. "Send in the elite boarding teams," he ordered, mandibles clicking in frustration. "Let's see how they handle direct combat." The response came minutes later, as his boarding teams encountered resistance unlike anything in Imperial military records. The humans had turned their life support systems into weapons, their airlocks into traps, and their maintenance robots into combat units. Every corridor was a kill box. every chamber a potential ambush site. "Marshal," Kivaz reported, his voice trembling. "They're not just fighting us. They're teaching us. Each engagement reveals new tactics, new ways of turning mundane objects into weapons. It's as if they want us to understand just how thoroughly they've prepared for this." In the command center of Lunar Base Alpha, a human commander named Sarah Rodriguez watched the Vrendari forces struggling to adapt to humanity's unconventional warfare. She toggled her communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies in perfect Vrendari. "You wanted to see our methods. This is just the beginning. Every defeat you suffer here was planned before your grandparents were born. Welcome to the art of human warfare." As if to emphasize her point, another wave of seemingly harmless mining drones activated their combat protocols, their simple industrial tools reconfiguring into weapons specifically designed to target Vrendari shield frequencies. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had turned preparation itself into a weapon. Dr. Elena Rossi stood before the Combined Psychological Operations Command, her presentation displaying the intricate web of cultural manipulation humanity had woven around the Vrendari Empire. The room's lighting was precisely calibrated to match the wavelengths that induced maximum discomfort in Vrendari optical receptors, a fact their diplomatic corps had discovered decades ago through seemingly innocent cultural exchanges. "The beauty of psychological warfare," she explained, gesturing to the holographic display, "isn't in making your enemy see what isn't there. It's in making them doubt what is." The display showed hundreds of Vrendari cultural indicators, each one meticulously analyzed and weaponized. Every color choice in human diplomatic uniforms, every rhythm in their formal speeches, even the geometric patterns in their architectural designs, all had been carefully crafted to exploit deep-seated Vrendari psychological triggers. "For 50 years, Rossi continued, we've been feeding them exactly what they expected to see. A fractious, technologically inferior species too busy fighting among ourselves to pose a real threat. But every internal conflict, every apparent weakness, was a carefully choreographed performance. On the main screen, footage showed Vrendari diplomats experiencing increasing signs of stress as they attended human cultural events. Their mandibles twitched at specific musical frequencies, their compound eyes dilated at particular color combinations, all responses cataloged and integrated into humanity's psychological arsenal. "They thought they were studying us," a general observed, "but we were actually mapping their psychological architecture." "Precisely," Rossi smiled. "Even now, their military commanders are receiving reports that don't make sense to them. Their tactical doctrine can't account for our strategies because we designed them specifically to exploit their cognitive blind spots." A junior analyst raised his hand. "Dr. Rossi, the latest intelligence suggests the Vrendari are experiencing unprecedented levels of command structure breakdown. How did we achieve this without direct psychological warfare technology?" Rossi activated another display, showing the intricate network of cultural influences humanity had seeded throughout Vrendari society. "We didn't need advanced technology. We used something far more powerful. Story." The display showed thousands of human cultural artifacts, movies, books, games, art that had been carefully designed to resonate with Vrendari cultural frequencies. Each piece contained subtle psychological triggers, building a foundation for doubt in their rigid hierarchical structure. Their young watched our entertainment, studied our art, played our games. Each piece carried carefully crafted messages that spoke to their species' suppressed desires for individual expression. We didn't attack their culture. We made them question it themselves. In orbit, a Vrendari capital ship experienced its first mass desertion as crew members, exposed to years of human cultural influence, began questioning orders that contradicted their newly awakened sense of individual worth. "But our masterpiece," Rossi continued, "was making them think it was all their idea. Every rebellion, every questioned order, feels completely organic to them. They don't realize that we've been orchestrating this psychological evolution for generations. The room's atmosphere grew heavy as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just prepared for physical warfare, they had engineered a complete cultural infiltration campaign, disguised as normal social development. The Vrendari pride themselves on their psychological resilience, Rossi explained. But they've never encountered a species that turned internal conflict into an art form. Every human argument, negotiation, and reconciliation gave us insights into how minds can be changed. We turned our own psychological scars into weapons. A new alert flashed across the screens. Another Vrendari command ship had gone dark, its crew refusing orders after exposure to what they thought was a simple human entertainment broadcast. The transmission had actually been a carefully crafted psychological operation, using generations of human marketing research to trigger specific emotional responses. They wanted to see our methods, Rossi concluded, watching the cascade of Vrendari command structure failures. But they never understood that the real battle began the moment they first intercepted our cultural transmissions. Every song, every story, every piece of art was a weapon, designed to make them question everything they thought they knew. In the depths of space, Vrendari ships began receiving transmissions from Earth, not threats or demands, but carefully selected cultural artifacts that spoke directly to their species' deepest psychological needs. The war for their minds had entered its final phase, and humanity's greatest weapons weren't their guns or ships, but their understanding of how minds could be changed through the subtle art of story and symbol. The Vrendari ground invasion of Singapore began at dawn. Dropships descended through the atmosphere, their commanders confident that Earth's civilian infrastructure would crumble before their military might. They had expected panic in the streets. Instead, they found a city that moved with practiced precision. Marina Bay Sands, the iconic hotel complex, transformed before their eyes. Its architectural features, long dismissed as mere aesthetic choices, revealed themselves as carefully disguised defensive positions. The infinity pool became a gravity-assisted weapon platform, its water mixed with nanomaterials that could disable Vrendari battle armor on contact. Impossible, Commander Vexthal muttered as his forces encountered their first resistance, not from military units, but from a group of elderly residents practicing Tai Chi in a park. Their slow, deliberate movements masked the fact that each one was controlling a swarm of microdrones through neural interfaces disguised as simple fitness trackers. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are using their public transportation system as a weapons platform. They're subway tunnels. They're not just for transport. They're a city-wide deployment network." Indeed, Singapore's MRT system, pride of its public infrastructure, revealed its true nature. Maintenance robots transformed into combat units, ticket barriers became shield generators, and every security camera linked into a vast targeting network that had mapped the city's defensive strategies decades in advance. In the heart of the financial district, a group of stock traders coordinated drone strikes with the same precision they once used to execute high-frequency trades. Their Bloomberg terminals, with a single software update, became military command and control systems. "They're not soldiers," Vexthal realized with growing horror. "Every civilian is a potential combatant. Every building is a fortress in disguise." At Changi Airport, what the Vrendari had assumed would be an easy target proved to be anything but. The groundskeeping staff activated defense protocols that had been hidden in plain sight for years. Automated lawnmowers became ground attack units, while window-clinging drones revealed sophisticated electronic warfare capabilities. In the Kampong areas, elderly residents who had spent years tending community gardens activated hydroponic systems that released targeted bioengineered pollen, harmless to humans, but devastating to Vrendari respiratory systems. Years of studying the aliens' biology through seemingly innocent cultural exchanges had paid off. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting anomalous energy signatures from their educational institutions." The Singapore Institute of Technology, looking like any other university campus, revealed its true purpose. Engineering students who had spent years practicing on simulation software found themselves commanding real defense systems with interfaces identical to their training programs. Every lab experiment, every research project had been dual-purpose, advancing human knowledge while preparing for this exact scenario. Even the city's famed hawker centers played their part. Food delivery drones, operated by vendors who had spent years perfecting their routes, now used that knowledge to coordinate precision strikes against Vrendari positions. Each stall owner had military-grade targeting systems hidden beneath their cooking equipment, disguised as ordinary kitchen appliances. Their entire civilization, Vexthal realized, is a weapon in disguise. At Gardens by the Bay, the iconic super trees revealed themselves as environmental warfare platforms, capable of generating localized weather patterns that played havoc with Vrendari sensor systems. The tourist attraction had been testing these capabilities in plain sight, dismissed by Vrendari intelligence as mere ecological experiments. In the city's schools, children calmly followed evacuation procedures they had practiced their entire lives, their educational tablets transforming into encrypted communication devices. Years of emergency drills had prepared them for this moment, each one a rehearsal for urban warfare. "Commander," his science officer reported, "their traffic control system, it's not just managing vehicles. It's coordinating their entire urban defense network." The city's Smart Nation initiative, lauded as a civilian infrastructure project, showed its military applications. Every traffic light, every sensor, every public Wi-Fi access point became part of a vast battlefield management system that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. A group of food delivery riders, their electric bikes modified with military-grade ECM systems, ran circles around Vrendari infantry units. Years of navigating Singapore's streets had made them perfect urban combat specialists. "This isn't a city," Vexthal transmitted to his superiors. "It's a military installation disguised as a civilization. And Singapore is just one city. They're all like this." In the command center beneath the esplanade, Singapore's civilian leadership worked alongside military commanders, their roles interchangeable. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, each seemingly innocent civic position doubling as a military command role. As night fell over the city, the true extent of humanity's preparation became clear. Singapore didn't just resist, it transformed. Every civilian was a soldier, every building a fortress, every piece of infrastructure a weapons platform. The Vrendari had expected to conquer a city. Instead, they found themselves facing an entire civilization that had turned urban living itself into an art of war. Admiral Helena Rodriguez stood in the heart of the Global Financial Command Center, formerly known as the New York Stock Exchange. Around her, rows of traders had become economic warfare specialists. Their years of market manipulation experience now turned toward a greater purpose. "Launch Operation Market Crash," she commanded, watching as algorithms refined through centuries of financial warfare began their assault on the Vrendari economy. The first target was the Empire's military-industrial supply chain. Quantum computers that had once predicted market trends now calculated the precise weaknesses in Vrendari economic infrastructure. Every cryptocurrency experiment, every high-frequency trading algorithm, had been a test run for this moment. "Ma'am," called out a former hedge fund manager turned economic warfare officer, "our blockchain viruses have successfully infiltrated their primary trading networks. They thought our digital currencies were primitive. They never realized they were weapons in development." On the main display, Vrendari economic indicators began to flash red. The Empire's largest military suppliers found their production lines mysteriously failing, their raw material supplies inexplicably rerouted, their financial transactions increasingly corrupted. They made a crucial mistake, Rodriguez explained to the assembled command staff. They assumed our financial systems were designed purely for commerce. They never understood that every market crash, every recession, every boom cycle was teaching us how to weaponize economics itself. The second phase began as hidden algorithms, embedded in seemingly innocent trade agreements, activated their military protocols. Years of commercial interactions with the Empire had allowed Earth to map their entire economic nervous system. Now, those same pathways became channels for systematic economic destruction. Status report on Operation Golden Parachute. Rodriguez commanded. The Vrendari's largest military contractor is experiencing catastrophic system failures, reported Sarah Chen, now coordinating with the Financial Warfare Division. Their automated manufacturing systems are executing trades that make no sense to them, because they were programmed to respond to our signals decades ago. The room watched as the first major Vrendari corporation collapsed, its stock price plummeting to zero in what their economists would later call impossible market behavior. But it wasn't impossible. It was calculated, each step planned years in advance. Their military runs on resources, Rodriguez continued, resources that require funding, supply chains, and economic stability. We're not just attacking their economy. We're dismantling the foundation of their war machine. A junior analyst raised his hand. Admiral, the Vrendari are attempting to stabilize their markets using emergency protocols. Rodriguez smiled. Those protocols were written by their economists after studying our financial systems. Systems we designed specifically to teach them exactly the wrong lessons about economic defense. On the screens, Vrendari attempts to halt their market crash backfired spectacularly. Every countermeasure they deployed had been anticipated, each response calculated to trigger an even more devastating chain reaction. Our greatest weapon, Rodriguez explained, wasn't our ability to attack their economy. It was our patience in building their economic assumptions. Every trade deal, every market interaction, was designed to reinforce their belief in specific economic principles we knew would fail catastrophically under pressure. The third phase of the attack began as Earth's quantum AI systems began targeting the Empire's commodity markets. Resources vital to their military production became prohibitively expensive or mysteriously unavailable. Supply chains that had seemed robust collapsed under precisely calculated pressure points. They're attempting to shift their military production to backup facilities, an analyst reported. Exactly as predicted, Rodriguez nodded. Those facilities were built using loans from shell companies we established centuries ago. With a single command, we can call in every debt, freeze every asset, and shut down their entire backup manufacturing network. In the Empire's capital, Vrendari economic advisors watched in horror as their civilization's financial foundation crumbled. They had prepared for military attacks, for cyber warfare, for psychological operations. But they had never imagined that economics itself could be a weapon of such devastating precision. Send the final signal, Rodriguez ordered. Let's show them why Earth's stock markets were really testing grounds for economic warfare algorithms. Across the galaxy, hidden financial triggers activated. Loans defaulted. Contracts invoked obscure clauses. Insurance policies revealed their true purpose. The Vrendari Empire, mighty in battle but naive in economics, watched as their war machine ground to a halt, not from lack of will or military might, but from the simple, devastating reality that they could no longer afford to fight. In the depths of the Vrendari Imperial Palace, young Crusader Kittel stared at his personal entertainment device in growing confusion. The human entertainment program he'd been watching, a seemingly harmless dating show called Love Beyond Stars, had just triggered something profound in his consciousness. The episode's theme of individual choice in mate selection had somehow connected with ancient Vrendari traditions that the Empire had suppressed centuries ago. He wasn't alone. Across Vrendari space, the Empire's youth were experiencing similar revelations, though none realized they were part of Earth's most sophisticated weapon system. Weaponized culture. In the United Nations Cultural Warfare Division, Dr. Maya Patel monitored the cascade of social changes rippling through Vrendari society. Phase 7 is proceeding exactly as calculated, she reported. Every piece of human media we've allowed them to intercept has been precisely engineered to resonate with their species' suppressed cultural memories. The monitoring screen showed thousands of Vrendari social media channels erupting with discussion about human concepts. What seemed like organic cultural exchange had been orchestrated decades in advance. Every human movie, song, and story that reached Vrendari space had been crafted as a cultural weapon. Their youth are particularly susceptible, noted cultural warfare specialist James Chen. The latest trending video on their networks is a human children's cartoon we designed 50 years ago, specifically to activate dormant questioning patterns in young Vrendari minds. The cartoon in question, Stellar Friends, appeared to be a simple story about cooperation and friendship. In reality, its animation patterns, color schemes, and narrative structures had been precisely calculated to bypass Vrendari cultural conditioning and plant seeds of individual thought. They thought our cultural transmissions were random noise. Dr. Petal smiled. They never realized that every human artistic movement of the last century was partially designed as a psychological warfare testbed. In the imperial capital, a Vrendari pop star named Zextra released a new song that borrowed elements from human music. Within hours, it became the most popular track in imperial history. The Vrendari authorities didn't realize that its rhythm pattern exactly matched ancient Vrendari freedom songs, while its harmonic structure contained subliminal triggers designed to awaken genetic memories of their species' pre-imperial culture. "Ma'am," a junior analyst called out, "the first Vrendari flash mobs are beginning. They're recreating human protest movements, but with distinctly Vrendari characteristics." Dr. Patel nodded. Every human protest movement we've allowed them to study was chosen specifically to resonate with their species' suppressed desires for self-determination. They think they're imitating us. In reality, they're remembering who they used to be. The screen showed Vrendari youth gathering in public spaces, performing synchronized movements that combined human dance trends with ancient Vrendari ritual gestures. Each gathering seemed spontaneous, yet every element had been carefully orchestrated through years of cultural seeding. Their version of social media is exploding with human memes, reported another analyst. But not just any memes, the ones we specifically designed to exploit their cultural pressure points. Even the Empire's attempts to crack down on human cultural influence played into Earth's strategy. Every banned human artwork became more desirable, every restricted human concept more intriguing. The Vrendari resistance movement adopted human symbols without realizing these symbols had been designed specifically for them. Their military academies are reporting unprecedented levels of questioning among cadets, James Chen noted. They'd been exposed to human military fiction that we crafted to highlight the contradictions in their own martial culture. The stories seemed like simple military adventures, but their plot structures were carefully engineered to create cognitive dissonance in Vrendari military minds. Young officers began questioning orders not because of human propaganda, but because they were rediscovering their own species' buried traditions of individual initiative. "Launch the final cultural package," Dr. Patel commanded. Across Vrendari space, entertainment networks began broadcasting a new wave of human content, each piece designed years ago for this exact moment. A new human virtual reality game became wildly popular among Vrendari youth. They thought they were playing a simple simulation. In reality, they were training themselves in the principles of democratic organization. Every game level, every challenge, was structured to build skills the Empire had spent centuries suppressing. The beauty of it, Dr. Patel explained to her team, is that we never had to impose our culture on them. We simply designed cultural tools that would help them rediscover their own buried traditions of individual liberty. Every human artwork we shared was a key designed to unlock something that already existed in their cultural DNA. In the Imperial Palace, young Crusader Kittel joined a secret discussion group about human philosophy. As he shared his thoughts about individual rights and self-determination, he had no way of knowing that every word, every concept, every moment of revelation had been predicted and planned by Earth's cultural warfare specialists decades before he was born. The revolution wouldn't be imposed from outside. It would emerge from within, driven by the Vrendari's own rediscovery of their suppressed cultural heritage. And humanity had spent generations crafting the perfect tools to help them remember. The Vrendari ambassador, Thul, stood once again in the United Nations chamber, but everything had changed. Gone was the imperious conqueror who had delivered an ultimatum months ago. In his place stood a representative of a civilization in transformation, humbled not by military might alone, but by the profound realization of how completely they had been understood. "You knew," he said, his mandibles clicking softly in what humans now recognized as embarrassment. "You knew who we were better than we knew ourselves." Dr. Sarah Chen and Admiral Helena Rodriguez exchanged knowing glances. The chamber's lighting, the geometric patterns on the walls, even the subtle background sounds, all had been designed decades ago for this exact moment of revelation. "What you're experiencing isn't defeat, Ambassador," Chen explained, activating a holographic display. "It's evolution. Every step of this conflict was designed not to destroy the Vrendari Empire, but to help it remember what it once was." The display showed the intricate web of strategies humanity had woven. Military preparation disguised as civilian infrastructure, economic warfare hidden within trade agreements, psychological operations embedded in entertainment, and cultural triggers masked as artistic exchange. "Our victory," Rodriguez added, "was assured the moment your empire mistook our preparation for primitiveness. You saw our divided nations as weakness, never realizing that our conflicts taught us understanding that your unity never could." Around them, the chamber filled with representatives from Earth's nations, each carrying data crystals containing different pieces of humanity's master strategy. They had all played their parts, their apparent rivalries and conflicts concealing the deeper cooperation that the Vrendari were only now beginning to comprehend. "The military campaign," Chen continued, "was never about defeating your forces. It was about demonstrating why understanding is the ultimate weapon. Every defensive system we activated was designed to teach, not just to fight." On the screens, footage played of Vrendari forces encountering human innovations, mining equipment transformed into defensive platforms, civilian infrastructure revealing military capabilities, and economic systems becoming weapons of unprecedented precision. "But our masterpiece," Rodriguez smiled, "was helping you rediscover your own lost heritage. Every piece of human culture we shared was designed to resonate with suppressed aspects of Vrendari civilization. We didn't change you. We reminded you of who you were." Cthulhu's secondary eyes widened as centuries of imperial propaganda began to unravel. The ancient texts, the ones speaking of individual choice and creative expression, they weren't myths. They were your civilization's foundation, Chen confirmed. "We studied your history more thoroughly than your own scholars. Every cultural weapon we deployed was built upon your own forgotten traditions." In orbit, the remnants of the Vrendari fleet received new orders, not from the Imperial Command, but from a transitional council that had emerged from the Empire's transformed society. Young officers, their minds opened by years of carefully crafted human cultural influence, began the process of reforming the military. "Your empire," Rodriguez explained, "was built on the suppression of individual potential. We simply created circumstances that allowed the potential to reemerge. Every conflict, every engagement was an opportunity for learning." The Chamber's artifacts, collected from Earth's various intelligence agencies, told the story. Decades of preparation, countless simulations, and an understanding of Vrendari psychology so complete it bordered on prescience. "Humanity's greatest weapon," Chen said, standing to address the assembly, "was never our technology or our tactics. It was our experience with transformation. Every human conflict, every revolution, every social change taught us how civilizations evolve. We turned that understanding into a science." Thal, his posture now matching ancient Vrendari traditions rather than imperial protocol, presented a data crystal of his own. "These are the coordinates of imperial knowledge vaults, sealed for centuries. We request Earth's assistance in rediscovering our own history." "We've been prepared for this request for 50 years, Rodriguez replied, producing a comprehensive plan for cultural exchange and historical recovery. Every university on Earth has departments dedicated to Vrendari studies, waiting for this moment. The Chamber's mood shifted as the true scope of humanity's victory became clear. They hadn't just defeated an empire. They had guided its transformation into something greater. Your empire asked to see our methods of conflict, Chen concluded, addressing Cathal but broadcasting to all Vrendari space. Instead, we showed you our mastery of understanding. The real victory isn't in the battles we won, but in the future we've helped you rediscover. As the session ended, Cathal received a final revelation. The university acceptance letters for the first wave of Vrendari students dated decades before first contact. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had prepared for peace, understanding that true victory comes not from defeating an enemy, but from transforming them into something greater than they were before. The stars themselves seemed to witness this moment of transformation, as humanity demonstrated that the ultimate form of warfare wasn't about destruction, but about understanding so complete that conflict itself becomes unnecessary.